בוקר טוב לכולם. שמי תומר פרי, אני מנכ"ל אינוקום מקבוצת אמן. אינוקום היא בעצם חברת המוצרים של הקבוצה, ואנחנו מייצגים בארץ לא מעט מוצרי סייבר סקיוריטי שגם הבאנו אותם לארץ בעולמות חדשנות. אז בין המוצרים אנחנו יכולים לספר על סיטריקס ופאלו אלטו ופרוף פוינט כמובן, שהיום נדבר עליה, ורובריק ועוד אחרים. והיום אנחנו נתמקד בעצם בפתרונות המתקדמים של פרוף פוינט בעולמות ה-AI. אני אגיד שבעצם ה-AI, העולם של ה-AI וכל התקופה הזאת והחידושים בעולמות האלה מצריכים הגנות חדשות ושונות. ואנחנו היום נדבר על איך אנחנו בעצם עושים governance לנתונים האלה ושומרים עליהם, וגם מתאימים בעצם את כל העבודה הארגונית לעידן ה-AI. So I would like to switch to English to represent the speakers. Nitza Daniel, VP Global Advanced Technology Group, is with us, and as well as Dave Barnett, Director of Advanced Technology, Sales EMEA in Proofpoint. I will just, pass um, the presentation to you guys. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. בוקר טוב. אני מתנצלת, אבל אני אעשה את המצגת באנגלית, גם בשביל שדייב יוכל להבין את מה שאני אומרת, וגם בגלל שכל הניסיון שלי הוא בארצות הברית מבחינה טכנולוגית, אז אני מעריכה את הסבלנות שלכם איתי כשאני עוברת לאנגלית, ואני מקווה שתהנו. בבקשה, אם יש שאלות, לשים אותם ב-Q&A, ואנחנו ננסה לענות אותם בזמן אמת, וגם כן ננסה להשאיר כמה דקות בסוף בשביל שנוכל לענות על השאלות שלכם. אז תודה רבה, let's go to the next slide. So when we look at the evolution of data security, we see three different stages that have happened over time. It started many, many years ago with a content data-centric approach. It was driven by compliance. It was complex. It took a lot of time to implement it. It left a really bad taste in many users when they're trying to implement data loss prevention. Predominantly, it was rule-based. You needed to know what the rules are and put those in place in order to be able to control what happened with your data. Then as time went by, we saw that content is not enough. And especially one of the main times that showed us that we needed to be able to work from everywhere was during the Corona time, where people were working from home. They were accessing data from any device. They were accessing cloud applications. And now the human factor and the behavioral factor of how we are interacting with our data was very, very important. So as we were looking at it, we introduced not only content, but the context, meaning what is the intention of the person as they're interacting with data. And today, in this new growing world of the agentic workplace, when you look at both agentic AI, having agents that will augment your environment, and using generative AI, the problem is magnified even much more and needs to have a greater level of control. As we speak with our customers, what we see is that 85% of organizations are experiencing some kind of data loss incident. 46% of them are telling us that they have got challenges with data sprawls. The more cloud applications you have, the more people you have, more data gets generated. And 64% of them are telling us that they have got 6 or more solutions to manage their environment. The level of complexity that introduces is unparalleled. Now, if you look at this slide, and hopefully you guys will join us in March when we come and talk about all of our direction and growth that we're doing in the age of AI and some of the innovations that we have. But if you're familiar with Proofpoint, chances are you're mostly familiar with our email gateway. You might be familiar with our collaboration security. But what some of you may or may not know is we've been in data security for many, many years. And about 7 years ago, we got very much in depth into the data security, done several acquisitions, and really adopted the whole idea of content and context, understanding the intention behind any interaction. As you can see, we cover a variety of different areas and solutions. And a couple of slides ago, we talked about the fact that our customers are saying that they've got at least 6 different solutions. If you look at each one of these areas, you can see there are many, many companies that are addressing each one of those. If you even only had one solution for each one of those aspects, you will end up with 13 plus solutions in your environment. Solutions that might be great point solutions, but don't talk to each other, don't communicate. The cost of implementing them, running them, the level of expertise that you need in them is significant. And that creates a really significant amount of complexity within the environment, which is opposite to what it is that we're hearing from our customers. What we continuously hear from our customers is that they care about reducing risk. And of course, I mean, risk is ever growing, and AI is actually making it even more simple for bad actors to find different ways to attack our organizations. They need to reduce the overall operational cost. I'm sure that if I got an opportunity to speak with you, you would all tell me that you have more to do, but you are not getting more people to get it done. So reducing false positive consolidation of tools, anything that allows you to reduce your overall operational cost is very important. And then business agility. We have technology in place in order to drive our business. So being able to leverage all these tools in order to drive the business is very important. So what does the agentic workplace mean from a data security perspective? Even a year ago, 2 years ago, you had humans that interact with humans that interact with data. No matter how good we are, there is a limitation to how much we can access. And then we also think through things. We have actually conscientious decision making. In this new world, you have humans interacting with humans, with agents, with agentic. The speed and access that we have is significantly more, and the same levels, if not even more, of controls that we have on humans, we need to have on the agents, because an agent doesn't have the ability to look at it and say, should I really do it? If you gave it access, it will go and get access into everything, and it can expose any vulnerability that you have in your environment. So as you're trying to address this growing threat landscape that you have, you're trying to see, how can I control the data? How can I enable my business while secure it at the same time? And at Proofpoint, the way that we approach data security is from a platform perspective. We look at data in motion as well as data in rest. We have a multi-channel DLP solution that can address endpoint, cloud, email, and understand what is going on within the environment, but it also can give you a really in-depth picture of what your users are doing from an insider threat. Insider threat is an ever-growing area of concern. And when you're looking at insider threat, there are 3 different areas that you want to understand. One, is my user just being careless? Are they just trying to do their job and they made a mistake? Has my user been compromised? Did someone get into my environment, took over that system, and now doing things in it that they shouldn't be doing? Or do I have a user that is disgruntled or about to leave, some kind of an insider that actually has true access to the data that is trying to take it? And understanding all of these components allows you to better secure this your data and the interactions with it. We give you a very clear picture through a unified platform of one place to manage the data, to put your policies in place, to understand what's going on, common threat intelligence, and a complete visibility to what is happening every single step of the way with your users and how they interact with your systems and the data. And then to address data at risk, we have acquired a year ago a data security posture management company that will allow us to look at all of it. What that does is it gives you a full platform that will enable you to do what you do, which is securely and safely enabling AI within your organization so that you can utilize it to innovate your business and stay more competitive. It reduces the overall risk in your organization, maximize your ROI, and streamline operations. When you put all of that together, you have a better control over everything that's going on. Because the reality of it is that today, in this day and age, every interaction introduces additional risk and can be a potential data security risk within your organization. So as you look at it and you're trying to figure out what should I do, what are the things that I need to take under consideration when I look at overall data security, and as I look to safely implement AI within our environment, we see 5 different areas that are important to pay attention to. One, know where your data is, classified, but not necessarily classify all your data before you start taking action, because that is a never-ending process. So doing the discovery, understanding where the data is super important. Where can someone access that data? What are your vulnerabilities? Looking at it and understanding the layout of it, where you might have exfiltration and access point is important so that you can make whatever changes are needed in your configurations and remediate it. So securing this access is key. You can't secure what you don't know. You can't secure what you don't see. So giving you that clear picture of where those vulnerabilities are will enable you to better secure the data. Then you need to govern it, govern AI, govern those agents, govern the interactions between the agents, between the data. In order to train all these GenAIs, you give them access to tremendous amount of company data and intellectual property. You want to make sure that it's used in a safe and secure way. And having the guardrails around it is super important. And we talked about automation, right? There is more and more to do. We don't have more people to do it. So having a unified platforms that actually talks to each other and an automated way of doing it will enable your organization to take advantage of AI faster in a more secure way. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my friend Dave to talk to you about how do we actually go about deploying AI in a secure way.
Thank you so much, Nitza, and thank you also, Toma, wonderful partners at Innocom here in Israel. I'm Dave Barnett. I'm the Director of Information Protection for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Proofpoint. My friends, we are all in this together. We want you to ask questions. We want to encourage you to challenge what we have to say. And also any insights that you have to share for other people who are on this call would be great as well. We're going to have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. We have a team of people also who can answer some questions as we go. Now, once in a lifetime comes a transformative shift that changes everything. I was here when firewalls were around, right? You know, when Palo Alto came up with this next generation firewall that changed everything. When SASE and Zero Trust happened, you know, I worked for Zscaler and I was part of that wave. There has been nothing more transformative than the growth of AI, the explosion of general purpose artificial intelligence. Now, I'm here in Tel Aviv, which is one of the most innovative countries in the world. You know, you will embrace artificial intelligence. It is going to be everywhere. It's going to be embedded within your workflows, and it's going to produce, hopefully, great competitive advantage for Israeli businesses and also Israeli government. But there's a massive growth across Europe, Middle East, Africa, US, Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is actually leading the way in terms of the growth of AI right now. But if you look in the EU, we tend to sort of think about how can we build a business case for investment in securing stuff. We need to look at data. So it is very easy now. You can actually use AI to find data that can help you understand what is the growth of AI in the workplace. And what we're seeing is that in Israel, the high-tech industries are the fastest growing. And that's not unsurprisingly because you have some very technically literate people working there. But if you think about it, right, if you're working in, I don't know, a hospital, you know, the purpose of a doctor saving Dave Barnett's leg by using AI to get a second opinion is very, very important. And IT is not going to stop that. If you're working in a tech company, the opportunity for a coder to be able to get better code quicker using coding tools, using AI is really important. And IT security shouldn't stop that. We have to enable the growth of Israeli businesses and Israeli government using AI. However, that comes with challenges. What we're seeing is that whilst the growth of AI exists and it should exist, the amount of sensitive data that is going into AI is also increasing as well. And it should not be down to the employee, to the user to decide what is important, what is sensitive and what is not sensitive. We need to build out a transparent layer of security that can allow people to reap the benefits of AI whilst protecting the organization themselves. Because essentially, I mean, if you look at, there's a website called there's an AI for that.com. There's 42,000 AIs out there on that website, and they're all very, very useful, but they're all places where people can put data in somebody else's data center. And this is the challenge, my friends, that we have, right? We want to use more AI. In fact, if I can get a tattoo, my wife would allow me to get a tattoo, it would be on my forehead with use more AI. And on here, it would be safely. I'm not going to get a tattoo. Don't worry, my darling. But listen,
I'm glad to hear that.
You know my wife, right? I wouldn't be coming home. But we need to do it at an acceptable level of risk and also without stopping the use of AI. Now, if you think about it, where are the uses of AI? And the three that we're going to talk about where we have practical solutions right now are around the use of public Gen AI tools. And we all know them, right? 2 years ago, November, you know, ChatGPT launched, you know, it changed. It was a penny drop moment for most of us, right? You were like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. We also have the use of corporate Gen AI tools within a workplace. And we're going to talk specifically about the version of Copilot that uses work data. Remember, there's two kinds of Copilot, right? 365. There's Copilot Web, which is essentially ChatGPT inside the corporate environment. And there's Copilot Work Data. And that exposes an awful lot of information that probably shouldn't be exposed to the user, and it can generate an awful lot of content that might then be sensitive. Also, apps that are connected to AI themselves. So when people authenticate to generative AI applications. So these are three problem spaces where we have solutions right now that we can talk about. And then at the end, we're going to show you a sneak peek of the way forward, a demo of our strategy in 2026. There'll be more of that at our Protect tour in Tel Aviv, as Nitza mentioned, next year. Okay, so let's talk about practical protection. First of all, before I talk to you about any products, I want to talk to you about a little bit of advice that I would give you. If you're thinking about data security, generative AI, protecting them, first of all, we've got to get away from this CISO comfort zone, which is just block stuff, right? If you just block stuff, you're pushing the problem to something else. If somebody blocks the use of ChatGPT at work, I'll go and find something else. I'll go and create a VPN, or I'll just do it on my personal phone, or I'll take photographs of text and start to put that into ChatGPT. If you're blocking the problem, you're creating possibly a problem that you can't even control, even if you could see it. Consider which parts of the business need to have exceptions. Maybe marketing creatives need to have access to some Gen AI where it's not necessarily that they're handling anything sensitive. It's probably that, you know, coding and development teams need to be very, very careful about where they're putting code. And, you know, work with your users, you know, embed user awareness training about generative AI into your regular cadence with the users. Have governance, appropriate governance and onboarding when you're selecting applications. In actual fact, I would definitely, you look at log files for, web log files, web usage log files to see where your users are starting to find generative AI that's useful, and then select a vendor, perhaps the one they're using, that could be governed and controlled. Classifying and labeling content and data at rest is very important, and so on and so forth. When you're looking at agentic workflows and agents, now it was only a year ago that Anthropic came up with the specification for the Model Context Protocol, and that meant that it really changed an awful lot. Whilst it was very disruptive in terms of changing a lot about the way that agents could exist within your organization and without, it also creates a lot of challenges. And the whole industry is trying to catch up to that right now. But for now, classifying and labeling the content and only allowing those agents to access data or content in a sandboxed environment that you know to be clean is a good idea. And also, of course, monitor the endpoints. And we're building out an agent gateway that we can talk about a little bit later. But for now, let's talk about the common use of unsanctioned GenAI. Now, if you put into chat what your favorite GenAI application is, I bet you it's not the one that your company's giving you. It's something you've probably found for yourself. There are thousands and thousands, there's 42,000 of them. So what happens if people put data into generative AI? Well, for example, in this case, I need to summarize these numbers for the CEO conversation before finance signs off, and also take away anything from the file I'm going to put into ChatGPT that is sensitive. Well, the problem is, as we all know, if you're putting data into a public GenAI app, that data is then part of the training data set for the next person. So you upload the unreleased financial records, and then all of a sudden, the next person can see those records as fact, because that's the way it's learning. So the first thing you can do is look at the web activity report. Find out what generative AI applications people are using. And you can do that, of course, with Proofpoint. You see that 14 users are using ChatGPT.com, and some are using DeepSeek and Gemini. And once you've got visibility of that, you can see, well, should we be making exceptions or should we be controlling the use of that? So, of course, with Proofpoint's endpoint DLP, it's very easy for us to prevent sensitive data loss by preventing uploads to generative AI sites. It can be done with a great sense of accuracy as well. You can also determine the difference between corporate ChatGPT and private ChatGPT. You might be a bit more confident putting data into corporate, as that's sanctioned. But if the users decide that they're going to break the rules, we can take a screenshot with the same endpoint DLP agent before they actually do the bad thing. It's a bit like pre-crime, in Minority Report. But I know it sounds a bit scary, but we can do it with the same agent. We can see what actually happened. Another thing we could do, if you set a policy for that, is masking data. So you could actually allow the user to upload data within ChatGPT, but say, look, I tell you what, we're going to let you have access. We're going to let you do that as long as we're going to take away anything that might cause damage to the company. So that's a common way of preventing data going up to generative AI. The next area is around sanctioned GenAI. When you download and you install and you use Copilot work within your environment. Now, as we know, Microsoft Copilot work, and also Google has a version of it as well, could really enhance the workflow within your business. You could help people look at files that they've seen before. They could see documents that maybe they couldn't find normally. The problem is that it's very, very, very powerful. And this is why CISOs and security professionals around the world have been limiting access to Copilot work to data because, well, I don't know, Nitza, I mean, if you and I have been working together at Proofpoint for 10 years, I might have shared something with you 10 years ago that probably you don't need to see anymore. Or Toma, maybe you shared something with the company. As a CEO, you shared something with a company a few years ago, and now that file has been updated and it's got sensitive data in it you do not want people to see. So I would ask you, everybody here, when was the last time you unshared something? We just don't do that. We don't unfriend people on Facebook. It's considered to be bad.
I think it depends on the friend.
Yes. Exactly, yeah. I know if I unfriended my wife on Facebook, I'd have a problem. But this is the thing. So ChatGPT Copilot work will find every bit of data you have access to, including the stuff you shouldn't. So
it's also sometimes if you change roles, right? You might have had access in one role. I know over the last 10 years at Proofpoint, I changed roles several times. And data that I used 10 years ago, I don't need access to it anymore. I don't know that anyone goes and actually share any of that data with me or removes my privileges.
I think most security teams struggle to keep up, never mind having to go and clean up people's permissions from the past when they changed the role. Yeah, I mean, what if I was a doctor before and I'm now a manager in a hospital? You know, I might still have access to personal data. So in this case, you know, can you provide an executive summary in 2 bullets of the upcoming Q4 numbers? And Copilot said, I know that. I'm going to find you an answer. I have found in your OneDrive that you had access to before unpublished numbers for the business. Not a good idea. So what could you do? Well, first of all, we could monitor the Copilot usage by using CASB. This is Cloud DLP. And in fact, actually, we make our Cloud DLP here in Tel Aviv. It's developed in Tel Aviv. It has been for a long time. What that will do is it will allow you to see the volumetrics. So is Dave, with his Copilot, accessing a ton of information he shouldn't be accessing before? And could Dave, I mean, look, it might be that my credentials are stolen, right? Imagine how powerful Copilot work could be if it's stolen by an attacker. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we can do around monitoring where it's accessed from, the times of it, abnormal behavior, that sort of thing. So using our Cloud DLP that's made here in Israel would be a great idea. The other thing we could do is look at the data at rest. And this is why we acquired a DSPM vendor and we fully integrated it within our platform. So let's say Dave has access to a bunch of stuff that Dave's forgotten he had access to. And what DSPM will do, will find everything. And when we talked about classification, and Nitza said bullet point number 1, it's really important, classification. This is the kind of classification that we're talking about. Not the classification on an endpoint, the classification of all that data that Dave's got access to that he shouldn't probably have access to because it's being shared. So classify the sensitive data, automate the integration with Microsoft Information Protection Purview. So we force confidential labels on it, or perhaps. And then you say, look, the policy of Copilot work is Dave gets access to anything, but it's not in these classifications. Dave is now a manager in a hospital, taking that example. He's not a doctor. So Dave should not have access to anything that's of medical records, for example. Obviously the application of it specific to your industry. I'd like to talk a little bit about AI apps and in particular agents. If you think about where we're going in, and this is still quite early days. So what an AI agent does is it uses not human behavior. Some of the behaviors it has are similar to humans, but it's also got behaviors that are specific to agents themselves. So this is using the Model Context Protocol, the Anthropic MCP. So the agents are going to create workflows that are not well understood. It's essentially, MCP is like a USB-C between the data that it's going to access and the human beings that are going to receive the information. So in this case, it's a ticket processing application that's been created. And the challenges that we need to see is how do we make sure that there's nothing that MCP is going to find? As Nitza mentioned, you know, AI doesn't make a value judgment in benefit of the company. It just finds data and does stuff. So how do you make sure that no data is found and exposed by MCP, by the agent, that should not be exposed? So if you think about what the use case of the agent is, right? So it's going to connect to multiple different systems. In this case, this ticket processing app will connect to Zendesk to see what the ticket is. It will then connect to Salesforce to identify, let's say, you know, some contextual information for the user themselves. It can go to Jira. Maybe it needs to go and find some, you know, technical details. And then it's going to access a whole bunch of other things that it has decided it's going to access. And this is the scary world that we live in. AI is going to be autonomous. AI isn't going to follow the path that we tell it to follow. It is going to solve problems that we are telling it to solve. We will see a world where AI will create applications of its own. It will generate code and it will run code. It'll probably run it for a millisecond and it'll go off and find stuff. Because that's the way the world is going. It's a completely different mindset. We have to start thinking like AI will think. So a good start, and we've got massive development plans in this area, but a good start with technology that exists right now is Proofpoint's data security posture management technology. We mentioned it earlier. or in the context of Copilot. But what DSPM will do will identify where the sensitive data is that the agent can have access to. So you're essentially going to sandbox the agent into an environment where you're only giving it access to data that you have made sure is not too sensitive. It's not going to put the company at risk. So classify the data, monitor and prevent excessive exposure by agentic AI, and limit it only to that area there right now. So as you can see on screen, DSPM is giving a safe area for AI to work, and you can see in the filters as well that it's filtering out to AI services. So this is what we have right now. What I would like to do, my friends, is take a little moment to talk about the roadmap, and I'm going to do that a bit of a demo. So these are products that we have in our roadmap. The usual safe harbor applies. They will probably exist, but it's fundamentally part of our strategy. We've got a release schedule for these that we can talk to you about. If you are interested in this, if you're seriously interested in this, we can certainly get together with our product managers and we can talk about the detail for this. But let me give you the high level. So we see some foundational requirements emerging in this new workspace. And when I talk to customers, it's really enlightening to talk through them. So the first one is around autonomous customer classifiers. So this is where we have an AI embedded within our platform in the customer's instance, a specific customer's instance of our platform that can go away and understand the context of the data that's within a customer and can classify data in that way. We also, in the same way that the wonderful company Wiz did, is they created a combined risk model for cloud security. We are creating a combined risk model for data in the cloud and data on premise as well. So creating an improved data risk map, because we know that accuracy of DLP is incredibly important, and you need to consider aspects other than just the data and the human behavior. So I can share that with you. Governance of AI applications, having a top-down view of the AI applications that are being used within your organization, making sure that they are adhering to appropriate standards, and making sure that if they're unsanctioned, that appropriate controls are placed upon them. This is a technology that is being developed again here in Tel Aviv, and it's very, very important for us as well. And then finally, around agents. Whilst we right now have the ability to sandbox the agents in an environment where they're safe, we're actually going to use agents within our own technology to automate a lot of the workflows. So let's talk about the first one. Let's go to autonomous customer classifiers. Anybody want to see a demo? I hear a round of applause.
I do.
Hey, okay, let's do it. Let's go there. So, when we think about data, the life cycle of DLP, as Nitza mentioned at the start, it was really looking at data in itself, and we'd look at regexes and we'd look at pattern matching, and we'd get a database of what sensitive data would look like. And the problem was it wasn't very accurate, but it met the compliance needs of customers. If you're a bank, you need to make sure that if Dave's stolen some data, what has he done? But it's very rare that you'd actually put that into a blocking mode, because what you're really concerned about is the risk of false positives, right? In the human world, the second phase that Nitza talked about, we looked at the human behavior. So if you combine, I don't know, exact data matching or with the fact that Dave's done 3 things before that would be sensitive, that would be risky, you can raise the risk of Dave's behavior to a point when you could say that particular data that he's trying to move out is probably going to be malicious. It's probably malicious insider or probably accidental loss or something like that. And that's kind of okay. And that's where we are right now. We've actually launched our own AI classifiers within our platform less than a few months ago. What we realized, I don't know you guys, but when ChatGPT came out, it really changed my world. I actually changed my name to Dave.GPT on LinkedIn because I started asking it questions and it was giving me really useful answers. And what we realized about 2 years ago was if we put mock sensitive data into ChatGPT, not sensitive, but pretend sensitive data into ChatGPT, it would classify it with a really high degree of accuracy. So we've built in pre-trained LLM classifiers within our product right now, that exists right now. But the next generation of that is around classifiers that mean something to your business, that are specific to your business. So first of all, these are LLM-based classifiers that are custom to your business, and they will only ever exist in your instance that nobody else has access to of Proofpoint's data security platform. So no data is sent to our cloud. Classifiers happens where your data lives, and they have near perfect accuracy. It's a fundamental shift in the way that data is classified. So there'll be no more regexes, no more brittle rules that you create, just intelligent context-aware classification that's built for your business. And this is a massive generational shift in the way, in the accuracy of DLP, data security. Okay. You want another one? Okay, let's go for data risk map. So I mentioned about the way that the world is going. So we're putting in the work to build a comprehensive data risk map, building together everything that we've got from a single unified view. Now, many of you do this every day with the wonderful Israeli company Wiz for cloud infrastructure, but we're applying that same approach to data, something that has never been done before. Look, whenever I speak to a CTO or a security analyst or a CISO within an organization, the first question that they ever ask me is, how does data move across my organization? And you need the visibility. You need the visibility of not where it moves, but where it is. So right now, in our technology, we have the ability to look at the way that humans are behaving and the way that that data, the lineage of that data, and the way that it's rolling across the organization. If it started in a trusted data store and then it moved out to become a JPEG that someone's trying to steal via email, we can see that whole lineage of that exfiltration. We can see how humans are behaving with that, who's got access to that data, the way that people have behaved before they touched it, and the people, what other things around that they have done. And we can have a very high degree of confidence in terms of what that person's doing. What we're doing is we're going to add in the configuration of where that data is to that aspect. So, for example, if data is being stored and that storage has got up-to-date patching and that storage has got accurate and robust encryption, that would be a lot less risky than you see. But what about when AI accesses this? So we're going to build into this the ability to understand whether it's humans that are accessing that data and exfiltrating it, or whether it's agents, AI agents that are accessing that data. So in this case, it's the Lucid agent. The Lucid agent has access to data from SharePoint, and it's moved 1.2 megabits of traffic over there. So it's being able to have this visibility of the data lineage and the configuration of the environment where the data is. Moving on, you can see there's the agents interacting with content and moving across the organization, implementing the controls within the same risk map that we talked about. Okay, anybody for another one? Okay, let's do it. So the third one is governing and securing AI. This is incredibly important. We're not going to take a small stab at this problem. We're going to solve this problem. We're going to have a view of the sanctioned and unsanctioned artificial intelligence in use within this organization. So in this case, we've got to care about AI tools accessing your data just as much as we care about people accessing them. Tools like ChatGPT and Copilot, they're transforming the way we work, but they're making it easier for us to access sensitive data. So sanctioned AI apps, Microsoft Copilot is not yet deployed because we haven't yet finished the governance that we're going to do around Copilot. ChatGPT 5 is in production. We have 315 active users there. Those active users are uploading regularly a number of files, but there are a lot of unsanctioned applications. Vibe code has been attached by an API. It's been authenticated to 18 users using the Microsoft credentials. We have seen 1.7 users. So what the organization should probably consider to do in this case is look and see if there's a corporate version of Vibe code, or go to tender to see whether there's any other coding applications that those users might have access to. Or perhaps go and speak to the users and see what are we not providing for you that the business should be providing for you. Anyway, so in terms of Copilot, right, it looks like some of the data is at risk of overexposure, which means that Copilot could potentially surface sensitive information to users that shouldn't have access to it. So traditionally, the problem of remediating file access like this has been complex and time consuming. Export an Excel list of people that are accessing stuff, send them an email. But what we're going to do with our data governance, it's not just the data, it's not just a screen that administrators will look to. We're going to empower file owners to take control of access, because let's face it, who knows better what to do with that?
Well, that's a really cool idea, because if I own the files and I know who's supposed to have access to these files, it is easier for me to determine who should retain it and who shouldn't. So empowering the users to do that is
perfect.
Really, really powerful.
By the way, if they don't respond, we're going to apply a DLP control in the cloud. But let's say they are friendly and they want to respond, right? So let's talk to Bobby. So Bobby has got 10 exposed files. There's a load of sharing widely that she's done, unfortunately, and it's got very confidential. So let's send a request to Bobby. So what does Bobby receive? Should we see what Bobby receives?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's send it to her in something that's readable, normal, human, rather than a bunch of text speak. So, Bobby, let's keep the files safe, right? Some of these files are shared with more people than you intended. So we're not blaming her for doing this. We're just involving her as part of the solution.
Well, we also don't know if those people need the access or not. It's exposed. We're checking to make sure, and she can determine whether or not they should retain that access.
So let's review them. So we've got 10 files to review. Let's keep it safe. So financial records, shared with some people outside of the organization. I mean, she may not even know it. It may that people have shared it on as well afterwards. So, there's a workflow there that Bobby can relate to, that's accessible to her, and it's not going to be challenging for her to deal with. Okay, who's for the last one? Leveraging agents. Oh my gosh, I love agents. Okay, so let's talk about it.
Well, we love agents. We're building a bunch of them. Well, some pretty cool stuff that's coming out there.
You know what? We're going to be leveraging agents within our technology itself as well. Because, those boring DLP jobs that, reviewing.
Well, I don't know if they're boring. They could be very interesting, but they're very time consuming. Analyzing data, looking at data is very, very time consuming. So if we can give people more time in their day to do jobs that are more meaningful than looking at data and analyzing it, is going to be very valuable.
It's the way the world is working. So we're launching the Satori agent, and the Satori agent is going to be your helpful buddy. We're going to launch them for DLP, as we're going to talk about today. We're also launching in partnership with Microsoft and CrowdStrike as well to do Satori agents, working in much a similar way. But for security functions around email security. And
actually, chances are that most of the people on the call are more familiar with our security, probably familiar with our email gateway, as well as the threat response audit pool, and some of the work that's associated with it. So there's going to be a lot of work that the SOC does in order to analyze that data, and we will have a Satori agent that will help with automating a lot of the work that's associated with Trap to augment what the SOC analysts are doing. So a lot of really exciting things coming out.
And we would like to encourage you to give us feedback about what agents, following the flow that we're going to show you in a second, what agents would you like to see within Proofpoint's technology? What jobs do you think could be augmented using artificial intelligence? So, but look, let's talk about DLP. So the Proofpoint Satori DLP triage agent is designed to automate much of the manual effort that's involved in reviewing and responding to data security alerts. This is not going to replace humans. This is going to make it a lot easier and more effective to work with large amounts of alerts. So, if you want to see how Satori has made its decision, so what Satori will do is it will close alerts and events that are accepted, that match the acceptable level of risk within the data security policy. So if you see how Satori has made its decisions, you just click into the alerts and you can see here, for example, that this file share was actually automatically closed. The reason was because Satori analyzed it and saw that the file share activity was an external third party. It was part of a proper acceptable use policy. So allowing your security analysts to move on and focus only on the escalated things. So let's look at the 7 escalated ones. So evidence of excuse me. Go back a second. There we go. So in this So Satori is here going to provide context on why the second example has been escalated. It shows that the user was interacting, and it provided externally shared but more confidential information that it should have had, right? And if you dive into it even further, you can see that the end user actually has a pattern of improper data security behavior. So it's putting everything that the user's doing into context. The context is so important. It shows that the user has had a history of interacting with data in a way that could be risky, and it's providing evidence of what happened, whether it's been shared by airdrop, it's been sent to personal email accounts, it's been uploaded from endpoints, and whether there's been a large volume of data that's been downloaded. So the Satori agent will give you the ability to ask anything, ask any questions in normal language, and it will use the information that we've got within our entire platform to be able to return a response. So, give me the user details. So you can go deep dive into the activity that person's had, how much data they've had, whether they've been through a security awareness training with our Zen guide, whether they've been subject to threats, whether they're most vulnerable people, very attacked person, whether they're a leaver group, whether there's a higher risk of this user doing stuff. So that's our roadmap. That's the demo.